From the moment when we emerge into the world, nothing makes sense. We're thrust into a world that's probably filled with harsh, bright lights. It's a lot colder than where we spent the previous 9 months. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to make sense of the chaos that continues to surround us. A chaos that is part and parcel of the world, as it's partially a result of the world as it is, and definitely a result of those who came before us that they created and left for us to inherit. Thank you for the chaos, ancestors. Throughout our lives, we encounter and embrace and study and reject a myriad of methodologies and systems for making sense of that chaos that surround us. We experiment. As babies, we learn that certain reactions get us attention and food. Wah! And certain things don't. As toddlers, we learn that certain things that we put in our mouth taste really yummy, and certain things don't. Certain behaviors get us rewards, and certain don't. But that's experiment. As children and teenagers, young adults, and so on, we continue to experiment. Some of us are more adventurous and some less so, but experimentation only gets us so far. Eventually, we figure out that we can learn from the mistakes and success of others who are willing to share their wisdom with us if we're willing to listen, either in person or through the records they leave for us to discover. Science, experimentation, gaining of knowledge tells us how the human is created, how the seasons transition with the rotation of the earth around the sun, how we breathe and walk and talk and think. But as humans, knowledge and scientific discovery can only take us so far. We also need to understand why. What does it mean? What does it mean for me? What am I to do with that knowledge? And how can I incorporate that into my life, into my moral and emotional understanding of the world? And there we have religion. As Rabbi Jonathan Sachs puts it, science takes things apart to see how they work, but religion puts them together to see what it means. And we need them both. The way we need two hemispheres of the brain. Science is about explanation, religion, interpretation. Science analyzes, but religion integrates. Science breaks things down to their component parts, and religion binds people together in relationships of trust. One way of seeing the difference is to think about their relationship with time. Science looks for causes of events, and a cause always comes before its effect. How did the window break? Because I threw a stone at it. First came the throwing of the stone, then the breaking of the window. Science looks back from effect to cause. However, human action is always looking forward. Why did I throw the stone? Because I wanted to wake someone up who was asleep to warn them that the building was on fire. An action always seeks to bring about something in the future. So how do we as Jews understand the world? How do we make sense of a chaotic ocean that we're constantly swimming in, hoping to have enough time to catch a breath between the giant waves that threaten to drown us? Because even if we understand wave theory and the push and pull of the moon's gravitational force on the tides of the ocean, we won't be able to make sense in the trough between the waves. Wave theory only takes us so far. It's here that we understand that both on a macro level and a micro level, for both the world at large and for each of our individual lives, every year, every waxing and waning of the moon, and each week, we understand that we are witnessing and invited to take part in a grand, majestic process, a process that surrounds three axes that anchor and give meaning to our lives. Three axes: creation, revelation, and redemption. Judaism tells us, the very beginning of the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, when God began to create the heaven and earth, the earth was chaos, void of any structure, tohu uvohu, completely chaotic, with darkness over the surface of the depths. And from the primordial chaos, God declared that there should be order. And God said, "Let there be light." and there was light. And God continued to create order out of chaos, eventually turning the task of creating order out of chaos to humans. Humans were given the role of giving each animal a name and identifying where it fit into the species. And humans were given the world that was chaotic and asked to make sense of it, to guard it and to protect it and to work it. And we were told that if we destroy this place, there's none after us to restore it. The fate of life on earth is in our hands. And through each generation of humanity, did God assign a task of creating a new piece of order amidst the chaos that still ensued until the time when God decided that it was time for the next axis. Creation led to revelation. And this week we read, now that Mount Sinai was all in smoke, for the Lord had come down in fire and smoke. God spoke these words saying, I, the Lord, am your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. In other words, I brought you from the state where you had no identity beyond slaves, and from amidst the chaos, I brought down on Egypt through the plagues, which was total chaos, and I birthed you as my Am Segulah, my treasured nation. I birthed you from chaos, and now I reveal to you your mission. What would our relationship look like now that God had brought us out of the chaos of Egypt? It will be a relationship based on a covenant of partnership, a relationship where the Jewish people are given a purpose, not the how, but the why. As Rabbi David Wolpe teaches, Revelation teaches the Jewish people the responsibility of relationship and moral order. Through law and story, we're tied to one another and to God. The words and endless implications of Torah are our gift to generations and a legacy to the world. And it's here, once we've been given the roadmap of Torah, that we can understand the final axis. Because we know that a stool can't stand on two legs, but it must have three legs to stand firmly. The tripod. When we see the model of creation that God did for us, combined with the roadmap of Torah that God gave to us, we'll be able to achieve the implementation of God's plan as we strive for redemption. So the third axis we must embrace, the axis that is in our hands to create and support every day of our lives, is the axis of redemption, the dreaming of, the planning for, and creating a world built on internal strength that allows us to have love and compassion for others, a strength that allows us to see the suffering of others and take actions and relieve it, because that's what it is to be a Jew, one who embraces the call to bring about redemption. As God made space in whose midst man lived, so we are commanded to create space in whose midst God lives. In acts of kindness, we live redemption, building through small deeds a world slowly perfected under the sovereignty of God, teaches Rabbi Sachs. This week we celebrated Tu B'Shvat, and we'll gather as a community after services to celebrate a mini version of Tu B'Shvat with some of the foods and ideas behind the holiday. But it serves a deeper purpose. The Seder of Tu B'Shvat, which we'll do, begins with winter, a white slate void of the appearance of life, a world of desolation and cold. Winter provides us a canvas that we can envision the world we want to build. As we go through the Tu B'Shvat Seder, from one season to the next, we experience the eventual creation and the revelation of the possibility with the blooming of the trees, and the movement towards redemption when we can harvest the fruits of our labor. When we apply revelation to creation, the result can be redemption. The world in which God's will and ours coincide, that can give us meaning as each of us works to find our own redemption, so that creation, revelation, and redemption can be the story of a past, a program for the present, and a vision for the future. Shabbat